My job is to help you transform your thoughts, transform your mindset, so you can motivate yourself. Darshan made this video about how languages in Nepal are going extinct. इस महल में कल रात को कृष्ण जी आए थे. Mental health is actually the real pandemic. COVID bhanda thulo pandemic yo ho. She said, no, depression can also look like you not living and feeling and breathing through the pain is a problem. Until I realized that actually my beauty lies within me. And your body shaming garne is an external thing. I can see what's inside of me. I can see what's inside of you. What about those kids who've grown up with the internet? What about those kids who compared themselves to the Kardashians of the world?
आज हामीसँग पडकास्टमा हुनुहुन्छ मानसी अग्रवाल. उहाँ एक कीनोट स्पिकर, पब्लिक स्पिकर र अत्यन्तै राम्रो भोइस ओभर आर्टिस्ट हुनुहुन्छ.
मलाई मनपर्ने लेखक क्रिस्टोफर हिचन्स, वान अफ माई फेभरेट जर्नलिस्ट्स पनि. न्युयोर्क युनिभर्सिटीमा राइटिङको कोर्सेसहरू गराउनु थियो अरे क्या. अनि अब कसरी सुरु गराउने राइटिङको कोर्स भन्दाखेरि जहिले अनि उहाँले भन्नुहुन्थ्यो म चाहिँ यो लाइनबाट सुरु गर्छु, इफ यु क्यान टक वेल यु क्यान राइट वेल. अनि अब सबै त्यो राइटिङमा आएको स्टुडेन्टहरू मख पर्थ्यो अरे कि ल मलाई त बोल्न आउँछ. ओके, अर्को क्वेसन, हाउ मेनी अफ यु रियली लाइक लिसनिङ टु दि अदर पर्सन?
Exactly. But that is the beginning of good communication. Always. It always starts with listening. So it's very important. Sir.
So public speaking maybe with time मान्छेहरू जति ग्याजेटहरू प्रयोग गरिरहेछन् and the social communication is getting lesser and lesser. All of the communication takes place primarily through cell phones, through video conferencing, and the interaction of two people face to face is getting pronouncedly less. अनि यसले गर्दाखेरि मेबी पब्लिक स्पिकिङ एउटा आर्ट फर्मको रूपमा डेभलप हुनु एउटा कारण यो पनि होला कि हामी नर्मल कन्भर्सेसन नै गर्न बिर्सिसक्यौँ.
Probably it's becoming, that's why it's also more coveted because people don't really know how to do it. And while they're teaching in schools these days, I don't see that kids are genuinely interested in having conversations with one another. And I think that is possibly one of the reasons why it's like that.
अनि अब हामी स्टुडेन्टहरूलाई इन्टरेक्ट नै कसरी गराउने, किनभने कति कुराहरू हुन्छ जुन यत्तिकै सिक्नु पर्ने हो कि राम्रो बोल्न भनेको त्यो सिकाइराख्नु पर्दैन. त्यो अनि अर्को मलाई यस्तो पनि लाग्यो कि स्टुडेन्टहरू अलिकति डोन्ट पनि फिल गर्छ होला कि कोही राम्रो स्पिकर छ बाहिर यो जति त म बोल्न सक्दिनँ.
But you know, that is the case. Even I faced it. When I was in school, I went to a school where it was a very competitive environment, just to like so. A lot of amazing speakers. I used to feel extremely intimidated. I don't think I ever went up on stage willingly and spoke when I was in school because I was so scared. Will I actually be able to hold my own? Will I be able to make sense? Will I be able to hold the mic and actually make an impact? So I was one of those as well, and I understand where that comes from. I understand that nervousness and that comparison all the time. And knowing that there are smarter kids, there are kids who do better than you at everything in any case. So I always had that when I was in school, but I'm glad I got over it. And I think that saved me.
मलाई पब्लिक स्पिकिङ नभए पनि स्पिकर्सहरूमा अति मनपर्ने एउटा फुटबल कमेन्टेटर हुनुहुन्छ पिटर ड्युरी भन्ने. अनि उहाँको आइकनिक कमेन्ट्रिजहरू हुन्छ, आइरहेको हुन्छ नि त. अनि लकडाउनको टाइममा फुटबल पनि खासै भएन, त्यति पडकास्टहरू भर्खर अब अनलाइन भएपछि के गर्ने, पडकास्टहरू धेरै गर्नु. उहाँले इन्डियाको पनि कति मान्छेहरूले उहाँको इन्टरभ्युजहरू लिनुभयो. अनि अफ्रिकामा पनि अफ्रिकन पपुलेसनले पनि रिच आउट गरेछ, त्यहाँ पनि अडियन्स रहेछ. अनि उहाँले भन्नुभयो कि अचम्म लाग्यो कि यस्तो यस्तो देश मलाई थाहा पनि थिएन कि मलाई यहाँ पनि सुन्ने गरेको छ कसैले भनेर. अनि उहाँलाई सोधेँ कि सिन्स यु टक सो ब्रिलियन्टली, अब त्यो 90 मिनट त यस्तो सुनिन्छ, अनि यो कसरी यो लेभलमा पुग्ने भनेर. अनि उहाँले भन्नु कि सुरुमा चाहिँ कस्तो लाग्थ्यो भने मिस्टेक नै गर्नुहुन्न कि क्या हो. अनि मलाई नै अप्ठ्यारो हुन्थ्यो कि ला म मिस्टेक कति हाइली कन्सियस हुन्छ. अनि अहिले चाहिँ यस्तो आएको छ पर्सेप्सन कि 90 मिनट हो, म्याच फ्लो भइरहेछ, मैले केही लेखेको छैन, म यत्तिकै बोलिरहेको छु, मिस्टेक त हुने नै वाला छ, अब म ढुक्क हुन्छु.
Enjoy it, accept it, embrace it, try to be confident enough about your content and try to build up that confidence that त्यो मिस्टेकको फियरले तपाईँलाई स्टपै नगरोस्, हाइज्याकै नगरोस्. But of course it's going to happen once in a while. Having said that, the good thing is when he's doing this commentary, he's the background score, right? He's the voiceover. But there's actually a match that's happening. When I'm on stage, nothing else is happening. I can't afford to make that many mistakes. You know what I mean? So when I'm doing a speech or a keynote, I can't really make mistakes because people are looking at me and listening to me as well. There is absolutely nothing else to grab their attention. त्यो चाहिँ गाह्रो हुन्छ अलिकता, but of course I know where he's coming from. I understand it happens to everybody.
सो एउटा प्रश्न अब अहिले मैले देखेको प्राय पहिला कस्तो हुन्थ्यो भने सानसानो मिस्टेक्सहरूलाई धेरै पोइन्ट आउट गरिँदैन थियो कि कोही कोही आउँथ्यो सुन्थ्यो जान्थ्यो अब अहिले कस्तो भयो भने एउटा पनि मिस्टेक गरे सोसियल मिडियामा राख्यो देन इट बुम्स के यतिकै अनि अब एउटाले नराम्रो कमेन्ट गरेपछि एउटा लहरै आउँछ कि एउटा there's a great section of the population which is waiting to pounce upon you.
Absolutely.
So how isn't that very stressful in some ways?
No, that's very stressful. But let me also tell you this. There's two ways of looking at it, right? Everybody these days, there's actually 3 or 4 different points. Everybody these days is like a keyboard warrior. Right? I can have an opinion on everything. Why? Because the keyboard and the fact that I'm hiding behind a profile picture and a name allows me a sense of anonymity. So everyone feels they can go and say whatever they want, which means that on some level, we are also diluting the importance of these conversations. They don't really mean that much. On the other hand, if you go for it in a very practical social media way, what happens is, I, for example, want my video to be popular. I'm looking at engagement. And engagement through comments. Comments is the best way of engaging because that's how the algorithm is going to bump it up. Sometimes I know of creators who would purposely put in a little mistake, put in something like an Easter egg, something different in their videos, something different in their content. So people pick it up, latch onto it. Like I remember I was watching this random video about people swimming and there was a clip of a pineapple randomly in the middle. And people are like, what is the meaning of that pineapple? Why is it there? It started an entire conversation about this pineapple. The pineapple had nothing to do with the video, but the video became really popular and suddenly everyone's talking about it and they don't understand the pineapple. That was what the comment section was full of. It's meaningless, but it bumped up the video. You know what I mean? So, त्यो एक तरिकाले त्यो जो negative comments, त्यो trolls, त्यो mistakes, of course you have to learn how to get over that criticism pani. But you also have to understand practically here, Kerry, if there's a lot of conversation in your video, fine, it's just pushing up the algorithm. Who cares?
Okay, that's a wonderful perspective.
You have to adopt that after a point, after you get trolled as much as I do. I don't get trolled that much. What happens with me is more of, तपाईं अंग्रेजीमा किन बोलिराख्नु भएको छ? Indian मान्छे किन नेपालको बारेमा बोल्नु भएको छ? I still get that kind of stuff. And people don't understand that I only mean well. I've not done anything. I'm not saying anything negative, I know. But there's still that conversation. So I get that a lot. Less now than before, but I still get it. And I've just realized that I'm going to have to make my peace with it.
Public speaking मा अब अहिले अलिकति डेन्जरस जस्तो भने कि केहीको बारेमा कमेन्ट गर्दाखेरि त को होस् बोल्नको लागि जस्तै इन्डियामा एक्चुअली आमिर खानले केही कमेन्ट गर्नुभएको थियो कि मलाई इन्डिया अलिकति अनसेफ लाग्छ किनभने अलिकति यहाँको एटमोस्फियर अलिकति भाइलेन्ट हुँदैछ कि क्या हो इन्टोलरेन्स अनि त को होस् हाम्रो बारेमा बोल्नलाई त छोडेर जा अनि ध्रुव राठीले यो पोइन्ट भन्छन् म त बाहिरबाट छु अब मलाई पनि त्यही भन्छन् आमिर खानलाई जब भनेर थिए तँलाई त्यति राम्रो लाग्दैन भने त यहाँ छोडेर जा अब म बाहिरबाट बसेर बोलिरहेको छु पनि यिनीहरूलाई समस्या भित्रबाट बसेर बोल्ने मान्छे पनि समस्या
No, you have to be careful. I mean, also you have to understand what level of speaking you want to do, what kind of topics you're interested in. And I also think that Kuni Kura cannot be unfounded. There has to be a level of credibility. There has to be a level of backing up with data or backing up with anecdotal evidence to whatever you say. So for me as a speaker, Raina, anything that I say, it's absolutely okay if people challenge it. But I will have my points ready. I will sort of know what I mean, at least most occasions. Otherwise, I'm not going to say it. It is going to be backed up with facts. It is going to be backed up with my experiences or somebody else's experience. And I think that makes a huge difference, right? To come from a point of credibility and genuine knowledge rather than to just go and faff around.
Okay. अनि यो आज keynote speaking भन्छ मलाई ठ्याक्कै थाहा नै छैन
Oh, keynote speaking के हो? Okay, good question because I want to clarify this. हैन धेरैजना मलाई motivational speaker बोल्छन् हैन. I am not a motivational speaker. I don't believe in that profession. I mean, people do it. I don't believe I can do that profession. I don't think that's my job. I don't think I would enjoy that. My job is to help you transform your thoughts, transform your mindset, so you can motivate yourself, right? But that's what I do in terms of motivational speaking. People think it's motivational speaking. Absolutely not. I'm a transformational speaker. Having said that, what is keynote speaking? Keynote speaking is when somebody is looking for a speaker for an event, for an AGM, for a college orientation or a college graduation, or an organization is looking for somebody to come and speak to their employees about a particular topic. You will look for a speaker who can do a 20 to 40-minute speech on that topic. So I do that a lot. I've been doing that with many different organizations for a very long time. And that is where I identify my skill set as a speaker rather than a motivational speaker.
So in order to groom yourself as such a decent speaker, being brought up in India is something that might have helped, because we see on average that Indians tend to be very, very good speakers. I was talking about Christopher Hitchens, one of my favorite journalists. He said that now there is a large subsection of population in India which speaks better English than Britishers do.
I agree. I agree. Yes, that is true. You know, I grew up in the 80s, right? Post-colonialism in Calcutta. Calcutta was the seat of the British Empire in India until 1911.
Okay.
So when we were growing up, there was a colonial hangover. Everyone wanted to speak like the Brits, be like them. There was a huge dissatisfaction with being brown. I'm not going to say dissatisfaction, maybe that's not the right word, but there was always, oh, they're cooler. That emulate गर्ने खालको थियो, हैन? त्यो जमिनदार old babu system थियो when I grew up in India. So हाम्रो घरमा पनि and मेरो स्कुलमा पनि. Now I went to a convent school. Our school was very hell-bent on English मा communicate गर्नु पर्यो, राम्रोसँग communicate गर्नु पर्यो, manners proper हुनु पर्यो, because that's what convent schools were like back then. घरमा पनि my dad was very proper. Like, you know, you have to drink tea in a certain way. You have to hold your mug in a certain way. You know what I mean, right? Not like as hey, je paite type घरमा growing up. I think these two things shaped me to think about things in a different way, maybe, to think about my thoughts with more precision and to frame my thoughts in a more compact way. I think that really helped me. As far as the English language is concerned, because there was so much pressure both at home and at school to speak the language well, we were just taught the language. I speak to my parents in English still mostly, and that's not very common, right? But my parents, I speak to my parents in English. My grandfather, I used to speak to him in both Hindi and English. My grandmom, mostly Hindi. But, you know, English is the language of choice. I speak to my siblings in English. And that's just how the atmosphere was. I speak to all my friends in English. And whether it's good or bad or whatever it is, that's what it was. So English as a language is one thing. The other thing was flow of thoughts and clarity of thoughts and communicating with a certain amount of credibility. That was because both at home and at school, there was a lot of stress on how you speak, how you express yourself, how you think, how you loop thoughts, how you create chains of thought. So all of that was given a lot of prominence when I was growing up. And I guess that made a difference.
Yeah, when I traveled to the southern part of India, and I had not done a lot of traveling to India back then, and I went to a place called Ooty, which is one of the most beautiful hill stations that you can. And we got off the train and we wanted to ask directions to an auto rickshaw driver. And first thing he said is Hindi or English. And I thought, because we don't really have this culture of talking in English in the Nepalese community. So sometimes we don't really get where the other person is coming from. So if you go to Southern India, for example, grandmothers and grandmothers' mothers will be talking in the English language.
Absolutely. My grandmother speaks perfect English. We just don't speak at home. But my grandmother, she grew up in a country that was not a free country. She was born in 1942. India got independence in 1947. So for 5 years, she was technically a part of the British Empire. She was one of the commoners, right? So she speaks perfect English. She reads literature in English. She also reads Hindi, but also in English. So for us, it's very common. It was never a foreign language
Yeah.
growing up. But in Nepal, because in a good way, very fortunately, Nepal was never a part of the empire as such, right? So because it was never a part of the colony, it was spared that. And I think it's got its pros, it's got its cons. Having said that, English is one language which sort of binds India a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to certain parts of India which were colonized by French, you'll find auto rickshaw people talking in perfect French as well.
Yes, absolutely. I was in Pondicherry
Pondicherry.
a few months ago. So I speak French. I learned French when I was in college, right? So I don't speak very well. I've forgotten, practice it's but your hunsa just disintegrates over time. But you've got all these road signs in French. Rue that this. So rue means road, right? So that was there all the time. And there's another place called Chandanagar, close to Calcutta, which is a very French place. So you go there, you still have all these old French kind of architecture, and you see again rue that this. There are names which are in French and things like that. Goa was completely Portuguese. So because different people had colonized different parts of India, you still have remnants of that culture there, always, everywhere.
So in what other ways apart from the language?
The language.
Yeah.
A lot of times, names of people, like because the Portuguese came in, let's say, to Goa, you have traditional Goan people, like their local names, and then you have the Portuguese influence, right? And they're married.
Okay.
So you have all these de Souza, de Costa. These are not very Indian names at all, right?
Yeah.
That religion came. We have a lot of Christianity down south in Kerala. Religion was a very big thing. In places like food, I mean, in Calcutta, till date, we have a lot of old clubs, old British clubs. My dad was a member of Royal Calcutta Golf Club. Royal is not Indian Royal. Royal is Queen Royal, British Royal, right? So you still have clubs there where they still have a very, very English culture. You can't wear certain kinds of clothes. You can't wear a sari. It's extremely whatever it is, but it's a different culture altogether. So you still see that in very, very subtle ways in different parts of India. What's good is that the generation after me has understood the pride in being Indian, maybe sooner than we did. Growing up, we grew up thinking speaking in Hindi was not very cool, And nahi, like Hindi school mein to nahi bolte hain, ghar mein bol sakte hain, lekin school mein to bolna hi nahi hota. It's not cool at all. Oh my God, you watch Bollywood, that's not cool. So you look down upon people of your own culture speaking your own language because we were bound together by English. But I think the next generation, in some ways, is more mindful and more proud of what they really come from and what they stand for. And I think that's wonderful.
So even you see this problem not only in India, but in certain parts of Nepal as well. There are people from the Tamang community or the Sherpa community who can't really talk well in the Nepalese language. And since they have a certain accent, a Sherpa accented Nepalese, they really don't tend to teach their children how to talk in the Sherpa language at all.
Wow.
And I have some friends who have now become my age and say, I wish I knew my mother tongue.
My mother tongue, yeah.
I wish I had learned a bit of it. My father never really encouraged it because they were looked down upon as the other because they couldn't speak perfect Nepalese. And now that I do, I wish I could become like my fathers and mothers. And I think this is something that only time can teach you.
Yeah, and languages die. Languages die, they become extinct. I was watching this video on Imagine Nepal, made by Darshan Pokhrel. So I don't know if you know about Imagine Nepal. It was a show where 7 creators, including myself, were allocated a province each. So I had Bagmati Pradesh, Hamra province, and we had to make 7 videos on the province, right? So Darshan, who was given Gandaki Pradesh, province number 4, Darshan made this video about how languages in Nepal are going extinct. And there are 6 people who speak a language. I mean, there's absolutely no way of, continuing, and that posterity will not last. So, ekdamai concerning kura cha haina. I think that we need to do this for the next generation. We need certain languages to stay on. My language, my mother tongue. Mero mother tongue is Marwari. It's not really Hindi. We speak Hindi because that's the common language in India. But my real mother tongue would be Marwari. I speak Marwari. I understand Marwari. There are little dialects and little differences in Marwari according to region and according to where people come from, and that's fine. But the next generation of Marwari kids doesn't really speak Marwari at all. And we know it's a dying language. We don't have too many books available. There's not much literature in Marwari that I'm aware of. I don't see any poems. I see a few songs, but those are religious kind of songs. You know what I mean? So through all of this, the culture is getting disintegrated and the language is dying.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty disappointing.
One of the good things or the bad things, and sometimes the two go together, about public speaking or keynote speaking is that we don't really do it in the local languages. We have this international feel to it because English gives it a sort of international ring. Everybody can understand it. Or you do it in the Nepalese language. Or in your case, you could do it in the Hindi. But you can't really do it in, say, Marwari, because there will be people from other backgrounds as well in a particular event.
So, I mean, that's a great point, but this is what I do as a speaker or as a trainer or as a coach. Before I enter anything, I have a thorough understanding of who's going to be sitting in the audience that day.
Okay.
Without that understanding, there's absolutely no way that I would ever engage in any kind of public speaking. So for me, before I walk into the room, I know the demographics, I know the age group, I know the educational background, roughly, average, ballpark, right? So I would know the demographics, the age group, the language, how much they've studied, whether they agree on a particular topic or not. What do they think about? How are they going to learn best? Are these moms? Are these students? Are these doctors? Will I need to do facts? Will I need to do stories? Will I need the stories to be relatable? Which language are they going to understand best in? Would they like to see photographs? Would they like to see anecdotal evidence? Would they like to see numbers? What is it that's going to work in this crowd? So for me, before I walk into a room, I know exactly how I'm going to have to speak. And if you remember, 10 minutes ago, before this started, मैले हजुरलाई पनि सोधेको थिएँ कुन भाषामा कुरा गर्नु त, हैन? किनकि मलाई थाहा छ that अंग्रेजी मेरो लागि अलिकता सजिलो छ, तर नेपालमा मान्छेहरूसँग कनेक्ट गर्नको लागि नेपाली प्रयोग गर्दा पनि एकदम राम्रो छ. So I do tend to mix both languages as naturally as I can, and I try to make it as seamless as possible. It doesn't always work for me, but that's possibly what you should be doing. So when I go into an audience, I go into a particular scenario where I'm going to be speaking, I know exactly who I'm speaking to. And in Nepal, when I'm doing a speech, the truth is I'm going to have 50-50 English Nepali, never Hindi. Because I know it's not going to be taken very well. And Marwari, never. Hindi, having said that, today I'm going to an event. It's going to be a Marwari event. I will speak in Hindi there. Probably not Marwari because I'm not super confident on stage in Marwari, unfortunately. But I'll speak in Hindi there. So it depends on the audience completely.
Yeah. I think that sometimes the media doesn't play a good role in bridging the gap that exists between the Nepalese and the Indian, because you see the Indian media sometimes they're very pro-India, and sometimes it's all right for any country to become pro their country. I've got no problems with it, but sometimes you tend to look down upon other countries. For example, okay, there's a lot of anti-Nepalese sentiment in the Indian media. Sometimes you see a lot of anti-Hindi or anti-Indian sentiment in our media. You might say the same thing about Pakistani's media, a lot of anti-Indian sentiment. But language is something that binds these three regions together so well. So if you take a look at Bollywood music, Bollywood lyrics, it's become so much better after the integration of Urdu, for example, which is one of my favorite languages. There are great poets such as Faiz Ahmad Faiz. I think that as speakers, we've got to do a better role of bridging this sort of animosity that is brewing, sometimes under the table, but it sometimes tend to boil over as well.
I'll tell you 3 or 4 different things, and then you can make what you want out of this, okay? Indian media se to India bhi pareshan hai.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? So even the local Indian people are sort of sick of the media, right? Everybody's sick, right? I mean, sometimes my grandmother watches the news and I walk in and I'm like, what are you watching? She's like, yeah. So she's very smart. She's very sharp, very smart. But when it comes to Bhagwan, she sort of loses any sense of logic, right? So the other day, I was in India a few months ago, and she's watching this news thing, and she's saying, "Oh no,
it's okay."
is there's something happening. It's like, इस महल में कल रात को कृष्ण जी आए थे.
Okay.
And somebody is saying, son Sunny, इस महल से some आवाज आई थी, somebody was dancing, Krishna ji आए थे, रास लीला हो रही थी, and my grandmother believed that. And she's telling me, and then I was like, Mama, this does not happen, like this is rubbish, this is nonsense. बोला नहीं, कृष्ण जी आए थे, अब हनुमान जी आएंगे, ये होगा, and प्रलय आ रहा है, and so there is a certain subsection of society that believes that, and the media is catering and pandering to that, I guess. So my grandmother was convinced. And she told me everything about it. She called up my aunt. She told her everything about it. Ab Krishna ji aaye hain, ab Hanuman aayenge, fir ye hoga. So I understand all of this, but this is a big circus. And trust me, even Indians are sick of Indian media. It's not just us in Nepal. I was extremely disappointed with Indian media once. And I remember that instance after the earthquake in Nepal, right? 2015. I was in India. I went back. My son was 7 months old at the time. So I went back to India the next day because I was a liability here. I needed to go and get out and make sure he was safe, right? And I go and म घरमा बसिरहेको थिएँ, मलाई याद छ. And काठमाडौँ स्थित घण्टाघर ध्वस्त हो गया है, kind of stuff, right? And घण्टाघर was fine. And now I'm watching all of this nonsense and probably computer generated images or something like that. And I get scared. And I posted on Facebook, guys, please be safe. This aftershock ma घण्टाघर पनि crumble भयो, होइन? And I caused panic, right? But the Indian media was sort of exaggerating to this level and then coming and putting mics in the faces of people who've lost their family members. कैसा लग रहा है आपको? भाई, my mother has died. What do you mean, कैसा लग रहा है आपको? This is not the time for you to do this. I was extremely unhappy with the Indian media and the way they handled this. I think at that point, I personally stopped following Indian media altogether, apart from when I walk into my grandmother watching random things on the news about Krishna ji aayenge and Hanuman ji aayenge. Right? That's a completely separate story. That is the Indian media. Let me tell you all about how Indian people think about Nepal. I have been in Nepal for 17 years. So every time I go back to India and I meet a new person, they're like, where are you from? I'm like, originally from Calcutta, but I live in Nepal. They're like, oh, Nepal, wow. Like, first question, have you been to Mount Everest? I'm like, no, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that. It's not like, okay, hi, I'm in Nepal. Let me just go and summit. It doesn't work like that. They don't get it, right? Then they're like, arey, weather bahut acha hai, right? We know this, we know that. Is it true? Is it like that? Do you have this? We heard about this Buddhist place. We heard about this place. And I realized that in the general population of India, there is no animosity. It's completely not true.
There.
If we feel it, it's because it's a figment of the media's imagination or what we fuel, okay? I don't feel that at all. People are super welcoming. People are super nice. In fact, people are like, Acha, do you know how to speak Nepali? Like, Acha, tell me this. Like, what do they eat in Nepal? So there's so much of curiosity. There's so much of joy. So many times my cousins have visited. Last month, June, I had a cousin visiting. And he's like, I promise you I will come back every year. I don't believe that my sister lives in heaven and I don't visit often enough. And I was like, you have to. People come here, they love this place. I've had touch with so many friends and family members visiting after the pandemic in the last 1 year. Everyone comes in, loves the place. They send more people back. I am the volunteer guide. I take them to the basic places that I know and that I want to show them around. I don't see any animosity against Nepal in India. The media is doing their rubbish, but that's a completely different kahani that I don't even want to enter. But people in India are also sick of the media. Right? So who are we to complain? Everyone is sick of them. That is completely different. I think we need to understand that the general population, like when I came into Nepal, I came in knowing very little about this country. The only thing I knew is this is going to be my home and I'm going to have to love it. Initially, I came with that mindset. I have to love it. Now, for me, that love is effortless. I don't have to love it. I just love it. It's home. It's all I know. I don't think I want to live in India, at least for now. I love this place. So for me, Nepal was never branded in my head, even before I came here, as something negative. Not at all. That's not true.
म पनि पहिला अब हामी सानोमा चाहिँ अब एन्टी इन्डियन सेन्टिमेन्टसँग ग्रो हुन्छौँ कि प्रायःलाई हुन्छ क्या यस्तो जस्तै इन्डियन क्रिकेट टिम भने चाहिँ दुईटा खालको हुन्छ कि नेपालमा चाहिँ इन्डियन क्रिकेट टिम कि त फुल सपोर्ट गर्ने हुन्छ
फुल सपोर्ट
कि त फुल एन्टी
एकदम
होइन त्यस्तो हुन्छ त्यो बिचमा न्युट्रल जस्तो त कोही पनि हुँदैन मेरो मम्मी बम्बे युनिभर्सिटी पनि पढ्नु भएको अनि मम्मी चाहिँ प्रो इन्डिया अनि म पनि बच्चामा त्यस्तै थिएँ अनि अब यताको सर्टन सेक्सनले चाहिँ होइन इन्डिया त खत्तम भनेपछि त्यो फिडिङ भएपछि त्यस्तो भयो अनि म मास्टर्स पढ्दाखेरि विन्टर स्कुल अन एस्ट्रोपार्टिकल फिजिक्स त्यो उटीमा गएँ अनि ट्रेनबाट झरेँ अनि त्यहाँको मान्छेहरू यस्तो राम्रो थियो मैले कहिले कल्पनै गरेको थिइनँ किनभने हामीलाई चाहिँ कस्तो देखाइन्छ भने इन्डिया गयो भने त किडन्याप हुन्छ क्राइम पेट्रोल हेरेको हुन्छ
त्यो त मिडिया अनि
एक्ज्याक्टली क्राइम पेट्रोल
सावधान हो जाओ types, right? All of that. They make it so like sunny, breaking news, kidnap. I understand that. Sometimes I face it too. But you know.
अनि त्यहाँ अब म गएँ अनि त्यो अटोवालाको अघि कुरा गरेर थिएँ हिन्दी कि इङ्ग्लिस भनेर भन्यो अनि उसले हामीलाई यहाँसम्म जानु थियो भनेर भनेको अनि उसले के भन्यो तपाईँहरू स्टुडेन्ट जस्तो लाग्यो अनि त्यो माथि तपाईँहरू नेपालकै हो जस्तो लाग्यो हामीलाई बनावट हेर्दाखेरि यस्तो गर्नु अब यहाँबाट गयो भने तपाईँहरूले 250 रुपियाँ लिन्छु मैले ऊ त्यहाँ लोकल गाडी पाउँछ 1 मिनट जति अगाडि हिँडेर जानु त्यहाँबाट तपाईँले 15 रुपियाँमा पुऱ्याइदिन्छ अनि मलाई छक्क पऱ्यो क्या किनभने अब यहाँ ट्याक्सीवालाहरूको त हामीले बेहोरा देखेको छ एयरपोर्टमा झर्ने बित्तिकै तान गरिरहेको हुन्छ टुरिस्टले अब यहाँ एउटा यस्तो मान्छे छ जो प्रफिट लिन सक्थ्यो मबाट तर उसले भनेको होइन तिमीलाई यस्तो सजिलो हुन्छ
But you know, I think there are good people and not so good people on both sides of the border. Yesterday, I was in a conversation with a person and he told me he came to Nepal on a 1-day vacation. Like he said, I'll enter Nepal, see what it's like and come back. He said he entered Nepal. He saw the cab drivers were so nice. The weather was so fabulous. The mountains were so good. He could see snow-capped peaks. And then, you know what? He's been here for 7 years now and he's like, I don't think I'm going to leave.
Okay.
So he fell in love, ulta eta bata. Some people go to India and they fall in love with that place. But I think it depends on your mindset, how you approach it as well. And also about how lucky you've been to meet the right people at the right time. Plus, good people exist on both sides of the border. Bad people exist on both sides of the border. You can get pickpocketed in India also. You can get pickpocketed in Nepal also. And in both places, somebody's also going to come and return your bag if you've lost it by mistake in a cab. So I've experienced both in both places. Ab ke bhanne? So.
मलाई यस्तो पनि लाग्छ कि अब इन्टरनेसनल ट्राभल भयो मिडियाको एउटा नराम्रो पक्ष त त्यो भयो तर अर्को पक्ष के भने राम्रो कुराहरू पनि यो ठाउँमा यो छ भनेर पहिले अलिअलि जानकारी हुन्छ ट्राभल गर्न सजिलो हुन्छ र जति मान्छे ट्राभल गर्छ त्यति ब्रोड माइन्डेड हुन्छ त्यही भएर अबको युथ चाहिँ मेबी इन्सुलर एउटा ठाउँमा मात्र बसेको त्यो ठाउँबाट बाहिर नगएको केही नदेखेको आफ्नो रिलिजन या आफ्नो सोचाइहरूमा त्यस्तो अडिक्ट भएर अरूलाई डाउन ट्रोडन भनेर हेर्ने होइन कि अलिकति वेल राउन्डेड चाहिँ भइरहेको छ जस्तो लागेको तर यही हुँदै अब नेक्स्ट जेनेरेसनको अघि हामीले कुरा गरेको थियौँ कम्युनिकेसन स्किल्सहरू अत्यन्तै नराम्रो छ साथीहरू पनि बोल्दैन किन कुरै गऱ्यो भने त साथी भन्ने अब बोल्दै नबोल्यो भने त कसरी साथी भन्ने अनि यसले गर्दाखेरि एउटा क्राइसिस मेबी मेन्टल हेल्थ जुन हामी मेन्टल हेल्थ अब ग्रोइङ केसेस अफ डिप्रेसन हामीले कोभिडमा कति देख्यौँ मान्छेहरू सुसाइड गरेको यताउति यो मेबी अब हामी धेरै वेस्टर्न लाइफस्टाइल फलो गरेपछि वेस्टर्न डिजिजेसहरू पनि आउनु पऱ्यो नि त किनभने पहिला हाम्रो पहिलाको सोसाइटीमा त्यति मेन्टल हेल्थको त्यत्रो इस्युजहरू चाहिँ थिएन मेबी एउटा कुरा त के पनि हो भन्दा त्यतिखेर मान्छेहरू ओपन अप पनि हुँदैन थियो होला मेबी
That's why we don't have accurate numbers. Probably थियो but we don't know about it. तर एउटा यो कुरामा मेन्टल हेल्थको कुरामा त I think for the last 20 days, the only thing I've been thinking about is mental health.
Okay.
Right? I'll tell you how it started and I'll tell you what I realized about it. I was judging one of the preliminary rounds for Miss Universe Nepal, jun aile hone wala cha. And we were speaking to 30 girls. So we had to speak to them and understand what their advocacy was, what they were going to stand for, what was their social impact project, because they have to work on a project. Yo kura गर्ने यो क्रममा हामीले रियलाइज गरे 30 जनाको बिचमा 7 जनाले मेन्टल हेल्थको कुरा गर्यो अनि ओपनली आएर भन्यो पनि that I have seeked help, I have seeked therapy, I have done this. हैन 7 ले त बोल्यो 3-4 यस्तो पनि होला who haven't probably spoken about it. And then I was speaking to somebody and she told me approximately 70% of all Indian people need therapy. They don't know it. It's not normalized. And for the last few days, I've actually been thinking mental health is actually the real pandemic. COVID bhanda thulo pandemic yo ho. Everyone's going through some kind of stress in some form. Different degrees hola, different kinds hola. But mental health is the next big crisis. Now, when we talk about whether this is a gift from the West to us or what it is, I don't know. But here's what I do know. in some book, and I cannot remember for the life of me which book this was, I read that people were studying happiness. And of course, there are tons and tons of studies on happiness, right? Flow, happiness, all of that. One of the major factors that contributes to happiness is your social connections with people, right? You could be super rich, you could be a billionaire, but you have nobody to call your own. जे गरे नि त्यो happiness को त्यो तपाईको factor माथि जाँदैन. You could be living an average lifestyle, doing a job, getting a certain amount of money, able to pay your bills, able to live in a small, nice, decentish apartment, doing all of that. But your happiness could be much higher because you've got social connections and bonds with people, right? So that happiness, which comes as a result of connections and bonds with people, does not rely on dopamine, which is like a quick burst. Quick fix just होइन. Dopamine is the anticipation drug. It's not the happiness drug. It's the anticipation drug. यो हुने वाला छ, त्यो excitement, त्यो joy. Planning for a vacation before a vacation happens is dopamine, right? That quick fix, that excitement, that anticipation is dopamine. But relations with people, connections with people that make you feel secure, that make you feel relied on, that make you feel like you can trust somebody is not dopamine based. And that is why these are the real things that contribute to happiness. I think communication becomes an even bigger part of solving this jigsaw puzzle of the mental health crisis, because it is a crisis. Let's be honest. Let's call it a spade. Right?
Definitely.
This crisis ma communication ko thulo role kina huna sakcha. It is through communications that we form bonds with people, and as we form bonds with people, we are able to feel happier, we are able to share more, and therefore we can in a way mitigate or at least reduce the impact of the mental health crisis. So मलाई यो एकदम लाग्छ workplace ma you won't believe, होइन? I have conversations like this all the time. I think one of my favorite things in the world is to just speak to people, right? Whether it's on stage with a mic or whether it's just like this, but I speak to people and I have in-depth conversations. Because I share a lot, I think that also encourages the other person to share, right? Ani 3 दिन अगाडिको कुरा छ. I was speaking to a client of mine. In the morning, she'd come over. It's a coaching client. So she told me, Mannsi, do you know a therapist? I said, okay, tell me, ke boy. She's like, isto. I want to see a therapist. I gave her a number. Afternoon, I speak to a friend of mine. He doesn't pick up my call. I call again. He doesn't pick it up. After 4 calls, he's like, I can't talk. I am not feeling okay. I said, do you have fever? He's like, no. Just mentally not fine. Give me a few days. He did not return my call. I was so concerned. I sent him a message. Just let me know you're fine. He's like, I've locked myself in my room. I'm not getting out of here. My friend says that to me. Can you imagine how concerned I am at that point? It's not a very close friend. It's not somebody I know very well. Yet I called him up for some work only. Maine just to check on him, but now I'm checking on him every day. Because now I'm like, oh no, I know about this. Can I do something? Can I help in some way? Evening, I speak to somebody and they're talking to me about their organization, how their organization is now potentially looking at having a therapist on roll because they're like, mental health is a big problem. We're making good money. We're not happy. Yesterday, I was in a conversation with somebody. He told me there are 6 women who have in the last 1 year divorced within that little organization. And they're all going through their own different kind of stress and crisis. So this is really the big pandemic of our times. I feel that if we are able to curtail and understand what this is, and especially in the workplace, if you're able to deal with that stress better, if you're able to have safe spaces for people to go out and communicate, we could potentially sort of mitigate the problems that happen as a result of this. But mental health is huge right now.
One of the other things that I think corporations have got to do in order to mitigate this issue is to give people time to mourn. So mental health को बारेमा मैले विलियम स्टाइरन भन्ने एउटा निकै राम्रो लेखक हुनुहुन्छ युनाइटेड स्टेट्स अफ अमेरिकाको उहाँले डिप्रेसन भन्ने एउटा सानो किताब लेख्नु भएको छ कि उहाँको एउटा डिटेल्ड एसे जस्तो थियो अनि त्यसलाई भिन्टेज बुक्सले चाहिँ सानो मिनी सिरिज भनेर निकाल्छ अनि त्यहाँ चाहिँ उनले एउटा सोसियोलोजिस्टको कुरा गर्नुभएको थियो जसले चाहिँ यस्तो भन्थ्यो कि द थियोरी अफ इनकम्प्लिट मोर्निङ सो कोही मान्छे मरेको छ से फ्यामिली मेम्बर्सहरू अब अहिले त कस्तो भन्दाखेरि कोही मान्छे मरेको दुःख पनि मनाउन पाइँदैन कि किनभने 2 दिनभन्दा बढी अफिसले छुट्टी दिँदैन होइन सो हाम्रो अब इस्टर्न कल्चर्सहरूमा हेर्नु भने कोही मान्छे मरेपछि 13 दिन 45 दिन होइन मजाले एक कोठामा बस्ने जस्ट क्राई इट होल आउट सकाउ सो द्याट यो रेमिनेन्ट बाँकी नरहोस् भनेर अनि हामीले अब वेस्टर्न कल्चर्सहरूमा त यस्तो छैन, या अब अहिलेको इभन हाम्रो पनि फास्ट पेस लाइफमा स्कुल्समा हेर्नु भने 2-3 दिनभन्दा छुट्टी दिँदैन। मैले कति टिचर्सहरूको 1 हप्तासम्म क्लासेसहरू पनि लिइदिएको छु, तर मलाई लाग्दैन कि मान्छे 2-3 दिनमै यस्तो कुनै ट्रेजिक इभेन्टबाट रिकभर गरेर फेरि नर्मली ल क्लास पढाइदिउँ ल यसो सुरु हुन्छ। सो मेबी यो स्पेस पनि अलिकति दिनुपर्ने हो कि जस्तो लाग्यो।
I love that you give it. It's such a nice word, the theory of incomplete mourning, right? I promise you this happened in conversation yesterday. Earlier this year, I went through a very huge, tragic personal loss. Personally, I went through something really terrible earlier this year. And the day it happened, the next day I was making a speech in front of 300 people. The next day. No 2 days, no 3 days. I was speaking to my best friend back home in India, and I told her, Karan, I haven't cried. It's been 6 months, no, 5 months now. I haven't cried. She said, you need to take it out. I said, I don't have the time to cry. And because of who I am, I can't cry alone. I need somebody else to hold my hand as I cry, and I don't see that. I don't see that space. I don't see that person. And I want to cry it out. I want to take it out, but I just can't get myself to cry. She's like, do you understand that grief is within you? I said, yes, I know it's there, but I overwork myself in order to not feel that grief. And I understand that it's bottled up somewhere inside of me, and that's a problem, but I'm not allowing myself to feel it. The other thing that I do is, and this is my toxic trait, and I know this is my toxic trait, and that is when I feel an emotion and it becomes overwhelming for me, either I work it out, which means not work out the emotion, I work. My work becomes my respite. My work becomes my escape. My work becomes what fills up my brain and lets that thought go away. So that's what I do. Or the other thing, which is possibly more toxic, is I try to intellectualize that grief. I try to come up with a psychological theory. And I try to understand the big fancy words to explain it, like I'm doing right now, right? And so in intellectualizing it, it's a mind game. It's never an emotional driven game. It's never a soul or a spirit game. Right? And when I'm working again, it's a mind game. I'm very in my mind. I don't allow myself to sit with my grief. And I realize that now. And I know I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling so much that Karan actually told me, Mannsi, you need to cry. Like, you really need to sit and just cry. And it's not happening. It's there, but it just does not come out. I don't have the time. I don't have the headspace. I don't think I have anybody to listen as I cry. And and touch wood, I feel mentally I'm very strong, right? So I actually went to a therapist. I asked her, tell me what's wrong with me. I'm not depressed. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, yeah, and I go for work and I do all of that. And she said, depression on paper and depression in the media looks very different from depression in real life. In the media, के देखाउँछ depressed मान्छे घर कोठा कालो कोठा गरेर हैन आइसक्रिम खाइराछ पजामाजमा couchमा बसेर, right? She said, no, depression can also look like you. A high-functioning individual who goes out there, who rocks at work, who makes connections with people, who's having the most fabulous life on the inside, on the outside, but on the inside could be struggling and suffering with something. So depression doesn't really have to look like the way it's portrayed on celluloid all the time. Having said that, मेरो depression छैन अहिले हैन. I'm not in that state because we did like a test. Like she asked me questions and I'm answering and I'm telling her. So I'm not in that state. Yet, I don't allow myself to feel my grief. And if I let this fester inside of me, this could lead to something bigger later. So I'm not entirely sure about how to tackle with it right now. And I'm actually thinking, I told you I might take the next week off. Remember we had this conversation. I'm planning to like drive to Pokhara. होइन आफै एक्लै फर्स्ट टाइम जाने भर्खर ड्राइभिङ सिकिरहेको छु नगरकोट त 3-4 पटक पुगेको छ तर विशेष हेर्नु त मान्छेलाई पोखरा जान्छु एक्लै जान्छु होइन गाडी चलाएर अनि त्यहाँ गएर 3-4 दिन बरु केही गर्दिन just sit by the lakeside, eat great food, have conversations with random people or not have conversations, take my Kindle, go read, sit, see if emotions come out, see if I feel grief, see if I feel like crying. I don't even know. So this is a huge problem. Not living and feeling and breathing through the pain is a problem. And I think the rest of my life, or not the rest of my life, but maybe the next pivot that I want to take in my career personally also is to help people in the corporate world understand this pandemic and understand how we can deal with this together. Because I feel that मैले जति नै customer service को कुरा गर्यो, जतिले sales को कुरा गर्यो, it starts with a sound mind and a sound heart. And if we cannot give people that, then possibly we're not doing things right. So how to get there, maybe how to understand a few things. What does mental health in the corporate space look like? What is happening right now? How can we deal with some of these things? What are some of the theories ne bhanau, haina? Like some interesting facts that make it easier for you to deal with things that are happening in your life. Just that awareness makes a huge difference, just the pani laksa. So I think that's going to be the next thing that I work on in my life.
अनि यो अलिकति एङ्जाइटी डिप्रेसन यस्तो यस्तोमा इन्च भएपछि मान्छे मोटाउँदो पनि रहेछ कि धेरै मान्छेले रियलाइज नहुँदो रहेछ
100%.
नर्मल डाइट खायो भने त्यो तपाईँले भनेपछि त्यो आइसक्रिम खाएर पजामासमा मोटाएको होइन कि नर्मल डाइटमा इभन एक्सर्साइज गर्दा गर्दै योगा गर्दा गर्दै पनि मान्छे मोटाउँदो रहेछ अनि सायद यो हाम्रो सोसाइटी बिस्तारै ओबिसतिर अलिकति इन्क्लाइन्ड हुनुको एउटा कारण मेबी मेन्टल हेल्थ पनि हो कि
I think so, because in the last 1 year, I've been going through a lot of stress, right? Not 1 year also, 6 months, Bhanu. I have put on more than 11 kgs, okay?
Okay.
And I can see that. I can see the way my clothes fit. I can see the way I feel. I can see the way my body functions. Everything has changed. Am I eating more than before? Yes, perhaps. I'm eating more chocolates. I'm not so controlled. I'm like, okay, let me do this. Maybe it's going to make me feel better. Because you're looking for that kick, right? You're looking for the dopamine. You're looking for those hormones, those things to give you that 1 minute kick. So maybe I'm doing that as well. Having said that, not to such an effect. It could not make me put on 11 kgs because I have a very active lifestyle. Right? Active, very active na bhanu, moderately active भन्नु पर्छ कि म दौडीको दौडे हुन्छु बिहान उठेर काममा जान्छु यता गर्छु उता गर्छु कहिलेकाहीँ वर्कआउट पनि गर्छु वकमा पनि जान्छु सिकी पनि रहा हुन्छु स्टेजमा बोल्दाखेरि पनि बस्दिनँ हैन So it's not like I'm lying down and sleeping all day long or I'm watching TV for hours on end. None of that at all. Tara pani I put on this weight. I think the whole metabolism can also be screwed by your mental health. If you're not happy, your metabolism takes a toll and takes a hit. Ekdamai farak pardo रहेछ ekdamai. मेरो लाइफमा त एकदमै. And in fact, so I was speaking to this therapist, right? And I asked, do you think I'm depressed? She's like, no, I don't think so. I said, okay. She's like, but you need to do a blood test. I said, why? She's like, because you told me you're not losing weight, like you've put on weight. I was like, yes, we need to check certain hormones because this is like a mental health thing. So I need to know how these hormones are and how these are playing out in your blood because that could also then indicate why you're not able to lose the weight right now. So I'm like, okay, I'll be kind to myself.
लगभग 3 हप्ता जति अगाडि एक डेढ महिना अगाडि मेरो एउटा साथी आएको थियो इन्डियाबाट अनि मसँग हुँदा निकै हिँड्थ्यो कि अब उसको लाइफस्टाइल चाहिँ स्ट्याटिक अब ऊ बसेपछि बस्यो सुतेपछि सुतेछ ऊ हिँड्ने सिने गर्दैन थियो अब म चाहिँ प्रायः हिँडि नै रहेको हुन्छु अनि मसँग हुँदा 1-1.5 घन्टा जस्तो हिँड्यो क्या ऊ अनि उसले भने यत्रो त म त कहिले पनि हिँडेको छैन र यत्रो हिँड्दाखेरि म त प्रायः दुब्लाइहाल्छु अनि 1 महिनासम्म पनि त्यस्तो हुँदाखेरि ऊ दुब्लाएन अनि झन् वेट गेन गरिरहेको छ डायट घरको मात्र खाएको छ बाहिरको पनि खाएको छैन जङ्क फुड खाएको छैन चक्लेट्सहरू खाएको छैन अनि पछि ब्लड टेस्टहरू यस्तो यस्तो टेस्ट गर्दा चाहिँ सर्टन हर्मोनल इम्ब्यालेन्स भएको रहेछ अनि कति केटीहरूसँग कुरा गर्दा उनीहरू भन्छन् कि केटीको त यति हर्मोनल इम्ब्यालेन्स हुन्छ केटालाई त थाहा छैन केटी हिँड्न मात्र पनि कति गाह्रो हुन्छ कहिलेकाहीँ
Of course, yes, it's true.
अनि सिस्टहरू कहिलेकाहीँ उसको चाहिँ अनि मेन्स्ट्रुअल साइकलसँग पनि तलमाथि खेलिरहेको रहेछ अनि यो यस्तो सिङ्क भयो भने ज्यान ठिकै हुन्छ होइन अब मेन्टली पनि स्पेसमा छैन भने त्यो माइन्ड बडी रिलेसनसिप भन्छौँ नि हामी यस्तो होइन कि माइन्ड इन्डिपेन्डेन्ट अफ द बडी होइन कि यो दुइटा लग सँगै चलिरहेको हुन्छ सो माइन्ड सेट राम्रो गऱ्यो भने तर त्यो भन्दा पनि कहिलेकाहीँ माइन्ड सेट राम्रो गरेर पनि सकिँदैन कि कहिलेकाहीँ त्यो
It has to start with the mindset, but it can't be limited to that. It has to start with the mindset, and then you have to top it up with thoughts and actions and behavior accordingly. So mindset le matra hudena tyo bhayepachi I can sit here and think the most wonderful thoughts in the world and hope that things are going to change. But I believe in the power of work. So mindset bada start garera, you have to work on that as well and make things happen. I don't think it's just the mindset.
अनि यो जस्तै वेट पुट अन गर्दाखेरि बडी सेमिङको इस्युज अहिले धेरै आइरहेको छ मलाई एउटा दुःख चाहिँ के लाग्छ भने हाम्रो समाजमा अहिले मुकबाङ सुकबाङ भनेर त्यो खाना खाएको भिडियो के मान्छे एक बाल्टी खाना खाइरहेको छ
No, I've
4
seen.
मान्छे एउटा मोमो खाइरहेको छ के गरिरहेको यार यस्तो त नगर अब यस्तो गरेर त मलाई लाग्दैन कसैले यो बाहना बनाउनु पर्छ फ्याट सेमिङ यताउति भन्छ नि अब कोही नर्मल मान्छे मैले अघि तपाईँले पनि कुरा गर्नुभयो कि अलिकति स्ट्रेसफुल लाइफमा मोटाइयो किनभने स्ट्रेस इटिङ भन्ने पनि हुन्छ नि त स्ट्रेसलाई कर्ब गर्नलाई खाइन्छ र सुगरी प्रोडक्ट्सहरूले हेल्प गर्छ भनेर यो त क्लिनिकल रिसर्च नै छ यसको बारेमा तर कहिलेकाहीँ यो फ्याट सेमिङ यस्तो यस्तोले चाहिँ यस्ता मान्छेहरूलाई अलिकति एक्सक्युज दिन्छ कि जस्तो लाग्यो क्या एक बाल्टी खाना खानु हुँदैन
त्यो त completely medically wrong है हो त्यो तो गर्नै हुँदैन त्यो त there's no excuse for that. I mean that you're doing, it's like आफ्नो खुट्टामा आफै कुल्हाडी हानेर who can say anything? I mean that's completely wrong. Having said that, body shaming is a phenomenon that exists. It's painful. But body shaming is not just fat shaming, okay? Body shaming is also, oh तुम कितनी काली हो? Like
तिम्रो नाक कस्तो होला
oh you're so short. Oh my God, you're so tall. You don't finish. You're like a tree. All of the yeah. We've heard these things. I have a cousin. He's really tall, right? And when he was young, he used to be very skinny. Okay? And he's much younger than us. So when we used to go in a car, we used to all go in the same car, right? Nobody would agree to make him sit on their lap because they're like, your bones are going to poke into my thighs. Okay? He was a bacha, right? He was so thin, right? We were also mean to him. Usle pani kahin na kahin to impact karya ho. I was body shamed a lot as a kid for 2 reasons. I'm dark. I was never pretty. So dark and fat, right? And I still have people back home in India who call me Moti. And my sister's extremely pretty. Okay? So the direct comparison hone. My sister's super pretty. She's like the nice, ekdam pretty, gori, thin, petite, very beautiful features. So the direct comparison hone. I've been through so much of body shaming in my life that for a very long time, I completely believed that I was unworthy of respect and love. And I used to try to hide myself. Like I wore red today in the morning, right? 5 years ago, maybe I would have worn something gray so that I would merge in with this furniture here.
Okay.
Okay. I would never, like, you can see my hair. I got it done, right? Like early in the morning, I would never bother because I'm like, you know what? I'm still going to look horrible. Why should I make a spectacle of myself as I do that? Let me hide. Let me not be seen. Let me not be visible. Right? I was doing this consciously or subconsciously for many years until I realized that actually my beauty lies within me. And your body shaming garne is an external thing. I can see what's inside of me. I can see what's inside of you. If somebody cannot, it's completely up to them. But I'm going to have to work my way out of this funk of trying to hide myself. Having said that, does it hurt? Yes. Does it still bother me? Yes. Do I still feel pathetic about it? Yes. Many, many times. I still don't feel confident. People see me, oh, mic ma kati mazale bolnu huncha, haina? People don't understand that I'm still very conscious about the way I look. I'm still extremely conscious about the way I dress because I'm like, oh, this won't look good on me. Oh, I'm too fat for that. Oh, I'm too dark for that. That's been ingrained in me ever since I was a child and it's not leaving. And I, at this age, reaching this point in my career, having a moderately happy life, I'm feeling this. What about those kids who've grown up with the internet? What about those kids who compare themselves to the Kardashians of the world? What about those kids who have access to that kind of content at the age of 13, 14? At the age of 13, 14, I just had a couple of aunts telling me I was not good looking. But what about those kids who have more people and the entire world continuously telling them they're not good enough and not good looking enough? That is a problem. So, malai yo body shaming ko kura ta it is रिस उठ्छ कहिलेकाहीँ हैन, and not every time can I do something about it. But there are certain things which are completely out of your control. Not that mukbang and all that. I am not. Disclaimer, I do not support such stupid actions for the sake of likes and for views and for followers. I mean, that's a completely different sport. And you're playing that, you're risking something, It's like when someone is taking a selfie on a road with moving traffic, you're risking something to do that. And that's completely on you. But if you are putting on weight or if you are a certain skin color or if you have a certain height, you can't be held accountable for that. I mean, people cannot make you feel horrible for that because it plays on your self-esteem in such unbelievable ways. You settle for less than what you deserve. You get into toxic cycles, toxic relationships. And I've seen so many of these playing out in my own life that I wish there was a way for me to go and tell every child, you know what, you look beautiful, you're perfect. But
एउटा अल्टरनेटिभ मिडिया पनि हामीलाई चाहियो कि जस्तै मैले एउटा पहिला डकुमेन्ट्री हेरेको थिएँ अनि उनीहरूले चाहिँ वेस्टर्न सिभिलाइजेसनको एस्पेक्ट्सहरू र कुनै अत्यन्तै त्यस्तो सिभिलाइजेसन्सहरू जुन खासै मिडियामा आउँदैन अनि उनीहरूले कम्पेयर गरेको थिएँ जस्तै वेस्टर्न ब्युटी स्ट्यान्डर्ड के हो त टक्क 36, 24, 36 पहिला बच्चामा हुँदा चाहिँ यस्तो भन्थ्यो अहिले फिगर 0 फिगर के भनेर भन्छ साइज 0 अनि त्यसको लागि अब केटीहरू जाने एक्सर्साइज गर्ने यो गर्ने त्यो गर्ने अनि एउटा आइसोलेटेड कल्चरको पनि उनीहरूले क्लिप्सहरू ल्याएको थियो कि त्यहाँ चाहिँ कस्तो रहेछ भने सानो एउटा कम्युनिटी 100-150 जनाको अनि त्यहाँको एउटा राजा जस्तो या कोही लिडर जस्तो अनि उसको लागि चाहिँ अब त्यहाँ हुन त प्राय समाजहरू सबैभन्दा राम्रो केटी अब राजाको बुढी हुनुपर्ने अनि अब पिक भयो नि त एक एजमा आएर टक्क एउटा सबैभन्दा राम्रो केटी पिक भयो अनि उसलाई चाहिँ 3 महिनासम्म केही पनि काम नगर्न दिने खाना ठुसाको ठुसाइ टक्क ऊ मोटी हुनु पर्यो मस्त हुनु पर्यो ब्रेस्टहरू ठुलो हुनु पर्यो हिप्सहरू ठुलो हुनु पर्यो अनि यो भएपछि बल्ल बच्चा पनि राम्रो खालको जन्मिन्छ अनि राजा अर्कोवाला राम्रो आउँछ कुनै सोसाइटिजहरू यस्तो छ नि त जहाँ ब्युटीको स्ट्यान्डर्ड भनेको मोटो हुनु राम्रो हो यो उनीहरूलाई चाहिएको छ अनि हामीलाई कहिलेकाहीँ अब तपाईँले भने इमेजेसहरू सोसियल मिडियामा फिड गरेको छ यस्तो केटी यत्रो बट साइज यत्रो चेस्ट साइज यत्रो वेस्ट भनेर यो प्रेसर्सहरूमा कति मान्छेहरूले एउटा त अब हामीले भन्यौँ बढी खाने तर एउटा अर्को डिसअर्डर रहेछ खाँदै नखाने क्या अनि यसले गर्दाखेरि क्रोनिक पेटको समस्याहरू पनि धेरै आइरहेको रहेछ मान्छेहरूले लगभग खानै छोडिदिइसके केटीहरूले जस्ट दुब्लाउनु र केटी मात्रै होइन कति केटाहरूले पनि
एक्ज्याक्टली दिस इज नट अ जेन्डर थिङ केटीहरूमा बेसी हुन्छ होला तर केटाहरूमा पनि छ होइन एन्ड यो जुन तपाईँले कुरा भन्नुभयो नि त्यो आइसोलेटेड सोसाइटीमा इट्स अ कम्प्लिटली डिफ्रेन्ट ब्युटी स्ट्यान्डर्ड राइट beauty standards within even the Western media have changed so much in the last 100-200 years since we have records, right? And for example, certain mate sizes, proportions, they keep changing over time, right? How can you keep pandering to that? Paila thyo, I think 90s ma thyo, a certain chest size. Now it's a certain butt size. What are we going to do? Cosmetic surgery every day? Nonsense. You know, I'm a mom. I've got stretch marks. Of course I'll have stretch marks, but that's my medallion. That's the honor. That's what my body has. Those are the marks and those are the rewards that I got for having that child. That's like proof that I actually gave birth, right? Am I going to feel terrible about it? Absolutely not. I don't think that we should allow the media to do this to ourselves. But the media is indiscriminate, right? To make you feel bad about yourself because they're selling an agenda. They need to sell beauty creams. I put makeup. I put makeup because I love putting makeup. I love it, okay? It's not like I'm against that. But putting makeup because I feel completely worthless or because somebody has told me to do it, that seems to be a bigger problem, right? So I do stuff because it makes me feel nice. It brightens up my day. It makes me feel better, right? Now, to pander to the changing beauty trends. Paila, I don't know if you know this, oh my God. You see pictures of like Paris Hilton haru, right? Paila, thin eyebrows, like pencil line.
Draw गरेको
literally just one pencil line, right? And now they want us to have bushy eyebrows. Is my genetics going to change like that? Like, you know what I mean? Or am I supposed to go under the knife every day? Or what am I supposed to do? So I get this. I also think that we as a society need to start being more okay about the way we look. I don't feel okay every day. I'm not going to lie. I don't feel okay every day. I put in a certain effort to do a certain thing, to be a certain person. That makes me feel confident. I understand that. Yet, you don't changing beauty standards. Ma roj pander garne. Aile yo color hot cha, yo color cool cha. Aile yo size, yo. That's crazy. That's crazy. I think it's just better to know who you are, what works well for you, and to sort of stick to that and optimize that, rather than to go by what everyone else is telling you. That's not going to work.
I'm like media by social media. Especially
social media is bigger.
Social media is
100%. In this, 100%. Social media. 100%.
एक दुईटा चेन्जेसहरू चाहिँ ल्याएको छ यिनीहरूले जुन राम्रो पनि लागेको छ पहिला लाइकहरू टन्न देखाउँथ्यो नि त यति नम्बर अफ लाइक्सहरू आएको छ तेरोमा भनेर तर अहिले चाहिँ सम पिपल लाइक दिस भनेर
Hey, I don't know. हो?
सो कसैले चाहिँ यस्तो स्ट्राटेजिज अप्नाएको छ कि मान्छे धेरै नम्बर्सहरूमा हुक हुन थाल्यो, नम्बर्सहरूको लागि जे पनि गर्न थाल्यो भनेर सम पिपल लाइक दिस भनेर छोडिदियो। अब त्यो सममा
2 पनि हुन सक्छ, 2000 हुन सक्छ।
2000 पनि अनि
I
अलिक
don't know about
स्टेपहरू
this.
चाहिँ लिइरहेको छ सोसियल मिडियाले।
I think that's a good move, ne? Because people do such crazy things for likes and all these days, yeah? Like random stuff गर्छ बच्चाहरूले त कस्तो कस्तो स्टोरी हेरिरहेको हुन्छु, रकमा गएर उभिएर फोटो लिने, डेन्जरस प्लेसमा लिने, होइन? There's cars. I'll tell you, oh my God. Strange story. In 2017, a friend of myself, Bhashwati, and me, we went to Paris for a vacation. होइन? हामी दुवैजना गएको. Thing is, both of us are very big photography enthusiasts. So we had taken our big cameras यता उता Paris मा, होइन? On the 6th day of our vacation, we went to Champs-Élysées, which is like the biggest crossroad in the world. And beach ma Arc de Triomphe cha and Champs-Élysées ma hami gayo, haina? So we saw a girl. I kid you not. I know this is before we were good on Instagram. Instagram was there, but not so much there in my life, hola, haina? So there's a girl very well dressed. So she was literally incoming traffic ma, she's walking. So there's traffic and she's walking into it. Okay, एक चोटी गर्यो, दुई चोटी गर्यो, and there's a girl with a camera, like a phone, not a camera, not a DSLR. We had the fancy cameras. We thought we were the serious photographers. There's a girl with a phone, and she's literally like पाटोमा almost बसेर सुरु गरेर लिइरहेछ के, होइन, हिँडिरहेको. And त्यो केटी हिँड्यो एक पटक, दुई पटक, तीन पटक, चार पटक. Ashu and me were standing and we were watching it. We're like, what's happening? We need to know what this girl is doing. Traffic यताबाट आइरहेछ, she's walking into the traffic. अनि त्यो they were looking for bus को हावाले त्यो कपाल उडाओस् के, त्यो इफेक्ट राम्रो आउँछ भिडियोमा. You know what I mean? She had to walk in a particular way. So then we went and we asked the girl with the phone. We're like, what are you guys doing? She's like, oh, I'm a videographer, like a cinematographer. I was like, and you're using a phone, like an iPhone to do this? You know, you're a cinematographer, you need a camera and a gimbal. Jios karyo hai na. So we went, so we're like, what are you doing it first? They said Instagram. Both of us, we laughed. We're like, Instagram? Like we were on the app and we had probably 2 photos, you know, hamro selfie, we were not active on it. We did not understand this phenomenon. So we went away for lunch. Lunch khayo. Feri, we reached that same spot. That girl was still walking to perfect that one shot. So for 3 hours, hamro understanding le, 3 hours samma that girl was walking. Till today, Bashu and me were like, remember walking girl. Because that's what she was doing. So much of the stuff that you see on social media is so fake. त्यो एउटा बसको यस्तो हावाले कपाल उडाउनेको लागि 3 घण्टासम्म त्यो हिँडिरहेको थियो त्यो केटी. अर्को उसको साथी बाटोमा उभिएर बाटोमा बसेर उसको एउटा शट लिइरहेछ हैन. And that one shot, which is going to be a 3-second clip on social media, took them 3 hours minimum in front of us to click, which means this is all completely fake.
मलाई अस्ति एउटा सरसँग कुरा हुँदै थियो. उहाँ चाहिँ अस्ट्रेलिया जानुभएको रहेछ यस्तो सानो कार्यक्रममा. अनि अस्ट्रेलियामा नेपाली कम्युनिटीको एक सानो मिटिङ जस्तो रहेछ. अनि सरले स्टेजमा गएर मैले यो भन्नुभयो कि साथीहरू तपाईँहरू अस्ट्रेलियामा बसेर बिचको फोटो हाल्नुहुन्छ, रेस्टुरेन्टमा खाएको फोटो हाल्नुहुन्छ, रक्सीको फोटो हाल्नुहुन्छ, कहिले काहीँ भाँडा घसेको फोटो हाल्नु न. किनभने यहाँको नेपालीलाई यस्तो इम्प्रेसन हुन्छ कि अस्ट्रेलियाको लाइफ भनेको त गाडी चढ्ने मात्रै हो होइन, मासु मात्रै खाने हो, रक्सी मात्रै मात्रै हो, भाँडा धुनेको हाल्नुहोस्, कहिले काहीँ एकान्तमा रोका भिडियोहरू हालिदिनुहोस् ताकि नेपालीहरूलाई अलिकति सजिलो होस्. उता यस्तो चर्को नेपालीहरू छोडेर गइरहेछन्, उनीहरूलाई लागिरहेछ म यो पाउँछु. तर यहाँ मेन्टली हेल्थ केसेसहरू के छन्, कतिजना स्टुडेन्टहरूले सुसाइड गरेछन्, कति स्टुडेन्टहरू पैसा तिर्न नसकेर प्रस्टिट्युसनमा लागेछन्. अलिकति यस्तो स्टोरिजहरू पनि लेख्नु न, तपाईँहरू के फोटो मात्र हालिराख्नुहुन्छ भनेर भन्नुहुन्थ्यो कि. सो कहिले काहीँ त्यो प्रोजेक्ट गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ नि त, एक खालको इमेज
कतिचोटिमा
गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. त्यसमा यस्तो यस्तो कुराहरू लस भइरहेको हुन्छ. अनि यसमा चाहिँ मैले जोड्नु खोजेको पर्सनल ब्रान्डिङको कुरा क्या. अहिले अब ब्रान्डिङ त ठिक छ, आफ्नो स्किल सेट म यो छु है भनेर देखाउनु त पर्यो होइन. किनभने अर्कोले कसरी जान्छ त. यदि मैले तपाईँलाई भन्दै भनेको थिइनँ म्याम म पोडकास्टहरू गर्ने यस्तो यस्तो रेकर्डिङ्सहरू छ भनेर मैले देखाउनु त पर्यो. तर यो सेन्समा अब हामीले आफ्नो पर्सनल कुराहरूलाई देखाउन खोज्दाखेरि, पर्सनल ब्रान्डिङ गर्दाखेरि यसको ट्र्यापमा नफस्ने वेजहरू पनि त होला नि.
Do not get into the trap of only showing the glamorous side of your
exactly.
life. I think authenticity is very important. I think Like मेरो social media मा जुन personal branding गर्छु, most of it is content that is educational content.
Yeah, related to what you do.
Related to what I do. 90% would be that, right? But there's always going to be stories. I found मेरो जुन particular mix छ,
हजुर
मेरो social media मा हेर्दाखेरि the stories are the ones that go away in 24 hours. That's always going to be an unfiltered view into my life. Okay, I don't share everything. I don't get very personal because there are some things I need to keep to myself. For example, you'll never see pictures of my family on my social media. It's not going to happen, right?
okay.
I'm very conscious about some things. Those things I don't want to put out there for different reasons, like safety and things like that, right? Or where I am at a particular moment. I'm not going to be updating every time, real time, live, this to gardina. Having said that, I'm still very conscious about sometimes showing the real scenario of my life. So there was this one day at 1:30, I was writing, and I write on paper just like you. And it's nice to see that people are writing on paper. So I write on paper, and I crumpled up a paper and I threw it on the floor. I crumpled up another, threw it on the floor. Crumpled up another, threw it on the floor. At 2:33, I see my floor is full of 6-7 papers like that crumpled. I took a paper of that and I wrote frustration. Right? People need to know that these things happen as well. It doesn't happen without that pain, without that labor, without that frustration. When I was learning how to drive, I would update my journey. Aaj yo bhayo, aaj maile yo sikhe. Behind the scenes ho ni ta. People should not be like, oh Mannsi, oh she went to Nagarkot driving. Right? That process, त्यो process पनि थाहा हुनु पर्यो. I think we, all of us, you, me, everybody else, we need to be more transparent about the process that it takes us to get to a certain place, because that really is the joy or the crux of the matter than the result only. I think त्यो एकदम आवश्यक छ. त्यो authenticity social media मा दिखाउनु पर्छ. आजकल the good thing is a lot of people are being more authentic पनि भन्नु पर्छ. LinkedIn मा पनि people come and share their stories sometimes. म stories मा त धेरै जनाको प्राय गरी हेर्छु हैन, यो भयो. Like suppose what was the one strange story that I shared? Oh, there was a story where I made a big mistake or something. So I was recording something, you know, behind the scenes. एकदमै mistake. मैले केही आल्तु फाल्तु नै भनिदिएको थियो हैन, and I put it and I was like, see, like this happened, and I'm laughing in that, and my friends are laughing or something. Recently, Bhatia, I can't remember exactly what I said, and I got a lot of like, "Ma'am, even you do this." I said, "Of course I do this. What do you think I don't do this?" You know?
मान्छे त
Of course, hunsa nahi hai na. I posted a video recently about how I was doing this project for a big INGO, and on stage I made 4 mistakes. You spoke about the football commentator. On stage I made 4 mistakes. Abu tyo mistake eti sano eti subtle थियो. I don't think the audience picked it up. But I knew it. I knew it because I know what standard I hold myself to. मलाई थाहा पायो हैन. अनि म त एकदमै upset भयो त्यो mistake हेरेर. And I thought my career is over and I'm struggling and nobody's ever going to give me work again. I swear. I called up my friend and I'm crying on the phone. And I spoke about this entire thing on a video on Instagram, LinkedIn. Ma pani cha, haina? So many people are like, oh my God, you go through this. I was like, of course, I go through this. What do you think? I'm crying and I'm howling. I'm like, I made 4 mistakes. एउटा दिनमा, एकचोटि स्टेजमा गएर 4 मिस्टेक त ठुलो कुरा हो. मलाई मान्छे कहिले काम दिदैन, मलाई यो हुन्छ त्यो हुन्छ. She's like, don't overthink it so much. But I spoke about it in a very unfiltered way because people need to know that there is a process and there is a way that things happen and things go wrong all the time. And I love creators on social media who are able to share that part of their lives unapologetically. That's beautiful.
मिस्टेक मलाई त्यही अघि हामी कुरा गरेर थियो फुटबल कमेन्टेटरको जस्तै 2014 को वर्ल्ड कप थियो कि अर्जेन्टिना र जर्मनीको फाइनल थियो अनि मेसीले जित्ला भन्ने धेरैको आशा थियो त्यतिखेर जितेन मारियो गोत्सा भन्ने प्लेयरले गोल हान्यो के अनि उहाँले भन्नुभयो के त्यतिखेर टक्क गोल हान्यो त्यतिखेर मैले गोत्सा भनेर चिच्याइ त हालेँ तर एकैछिन मन कस्तो भारी भयो गोची हो कि हैन किनभने अब त्यस्तो मिस्टेक भयो नि त अब करियर
It's like, remember Steve Harvey le Miss Universe ma ke garnu bhayo? Do you remember that? So Steve Harvey is like the host or the master of ceremony of the Miss Universe, right? And I'm not sure which year this happened, but he announced the wrong winner.
Hey, okay.
And she was crowned. Naam ei galat. Deskai naam. Manche bhanda, like suppose it.
अनि अर्को केटीलाई ताज पनि लगाइदिएको थियो मलाई याद छ.
The walk पनि गर्यो के. अब त्यो मान्छेको कति ठुलो जिम्मेवारी भयो नि एक तरिकाले. And then somebody obviously must have told him because he had an earpiece, right? So somebody must have told him on the earpiece, bro, like you messed up. You to galti bhayo hai na. And he apologized and he owned up on stage and he's like, I'm so sorry, I need to apologize. And pin drop silence. Everyone's shocked because this girl is like wearing the crowd. She's like, oh, happy, crying and all. And the other one's gone and she's retreated. And she's like, okay, fine, I'm first runner-up.
हजुर
त्यो जुन owning up to his mistake he did it very graciously just लाग्छ के and that's very important. त्यो त एकदमै important हो. And I think social media मा that clip became very viral about the whole mistake. Then he spoke about it as well. And I like how he spoke about it. I like what he said about it. He said, I made a mistake and I'm sorry. And that's that. And people gave him that credit. And they're like, fine, you're just human. It's absolutely okay to make these mistakes. I think we need to be a bit more forgiving of ourselves. And we need to showcase that side of ourselves on social media.
अनि अब एउटा साइड तपाईँको प्राय मान्छेलाई थाहा नभएको तपाईँ थिएटर एक्टिङ पनि अलिअलि गर्नुहुन्छ भनेर
अहिले गर्दिनँ,
पहिला गर्नुहुन्थ्यो. सो हाउ डज थिएटर वर्क? मेबी त्यसले पनि पब्लिक स्पिकिङमा अलिकति हेल्प गर्छ कि, किनभने दिनदिनै क्राउड फेस गरिरहेको हुन्छ, एक खालको छुट्टै खालको एक्जोसन हुन्छ. म र रुपेश हामी दुईजना लगभग थिएटर जहिले गइरहेको हुन्छौँ कि, किनभने प्राय गइरहेका हुन्छौँ, किनभने लोकल आर्टिस्टहरूलाई सपोर्ट गर्नुपर्छ. अब यो मुभीमा देखाउँछ स्ट्यान्डर्ड बलिउड या स्ट्यान्डर्ड त्यो साउथको मुभिजहरू भन्दा पनि त्यहाँ गयो भने चाहिँ अलिकति सेन्स पनि आउँदो रहेछ कि. अनि त्यो हार्ड वर्क, अहिले हामी नवाजुद्दिन सिद्दिकीहरूको कस्तो नाम सुन्छौँ, तर थिएटरमा गएपछि थाहा हुन्छ कि यिनीहरू त कस्तो स्ट्रगल गरेर आएको. यो त एभ्री डे एउटै डायलग 30 दिनसम्म भन्नु, त्यो पनि केही याद छैन, स्क्रिप्ट केही छैन. अनि त्यो पनि जरुरी होला है तालिमको लागि, राम्रो स्पिकर हुनको लागि.
मेरो लागि I think उल्टा थियो. I think I was a good actor on stage because I was good at public speaking. मेरो लागि अलि उल्टा भयो जस्तो छ. Because for me, public speaking has been a part of my life for a much longer time. I'm more trained in public speaking than in theatre. So I think त्यो जुन voice को throw भनौँ, कि voice को expression भनौँ, कि inflection भनौँ, कि body language भनौँ, त्यो मैले actually public speaking बाट सिकेर थिएटरमा apply गरेँ जस्तो छ. So मलाई उल्टा लाग्छ, but it could happily work the other way as well. With public speaking, the difference I think in theatre and public speaking, in a way, the big difference is theatre is not your thoughts, it's not your words. You're becoming somebody else. Public speaking is your thought. So in a lot of ways, you have more control over the content of what you're going to say, right? So for me, because I'm trained in writing and I'm trained in speaking in a particular way, त्यो speaking, त्यो voice ले मलाई theatre मा help गर्या हो. तर theatre को dialogues तो आफ्नो कहिले नै हुँदैन. You have to get the dialogues and you have to be that part. You have to be that person. I truly loved my time on stage.
इन्डियामा कि नेपालमा?
There's a group called Pink and Grey Unlimited and they do Hindi plays in Nepal. So they've done 11 plays, I think. मैले 9वटामा participate गरेर I acted in them. And I had small roles, big roles, fun roles, difficult roles, all sorts of stuff. एकदम रमाइलो भयो. It's been a great journey. It's been a lot of fun. In fact, I always joke with people that if I thought I was better looking, I would be an actor.
Okay.
Like if I had confidence about the way I looked, I would love to be an actor. It's one of those joys. I want to get in front of the camera and be somebody else. Voiceovers allow me to do that because voiceover is also voice acting. It's not just voice over, right? It's voice acting. You have to emote in that moment. You have to be that person. त्यो पनि गर्छु. I've dubbed a full-length feature film also, Hindi. So त्यो voiceover गर्दाखेरि you become that person, and I love that. I love being able to have a different role and put on that act of being somebody else. I enjoy that. So I think, I would love to be an actor, be on stage, assume a different character for a short span of time and come back to life.
मलाई यस्तो पनि लाग्यो कि त्यो इभन मुभिजहरूमा पनि स्ट्यान्डर्ड टाइपको हिरोइन हुनुपर्छ या स्ट्यान्डर्ड, या हामी त्यो ट्रेडिसनल त्यो हिरो हिरोइनको त्यो कन्सेप्ट भन्दा अलिक पर पुगेकै छैन क्या अझै पनि. मेनस्ट्रिममा चाहिँ पुगेको छैन.
मेनस्ट्रिममा पुगेको छैन, तर there is a cinema that exists. There is an entire body of work that exists, especially your OTT platformहरूले पनि. It's opened it up. There's an entire body of work that exists where people do not have to look conventionally. एउटा certain beauty standard meet हुने, एउटा हिरोइन नि त यस्तै हुन्छ, केटा त त्यस्तै, त्यो वाला अब सिन गइसक्यो. त्यो ओटिटीमा, त्यो इन्डिपेन्डेन्ट सिनेमा त एकदम भइरहेछ. मेन स्ट्रिममा it hasn't happened yet, but I'm hoping it's going to happen soon. Although I don't know with AI के हुन्छ सिनेमामा, because I'm hearing a lot of crazy things, a lot of different thoughts.
कति क्रिएटर्सहरूले जागिरहरू गइरहेको, एनिमेटर्सहरूले पनि अब एनिमेसनको जब्सहरू लुज गरिरहेको, किनभने अलिअलि रफ स्केच हुने बित्तिकै एनिमेसन यतिकै बनाइदिने, यस्तो यस्तो सुन्न चाहिँ
मैले सुनेको योभन्दा एक स्टेप अहेडै भन्नुपर्छ.
हजुर.
Suppose you are Ranbir Kapoor, let's say. Yeah. I'll be happy if you were Ranbir Kapoor right now. I'll be the happiest person in the country, but okay. Suppose you're Ranbir Kapoor, right? There are these cameras or whatever this technology, I'm not sure whether it's cameras or what it is, that's literally going to take your full, let's say, measurement, like what you look like, right? Your body, your hair, your face, everything. And just based on that visual or that measurement or whatever of you, they're going to recreate you, and you don't actually need to show up for the shooting. That avatar of yours is going to do the entire work. In 16 years, this technology is going to happen. Which means that all that you literally need to do is stand and just give your body measurements, and you're an actor. Now that's going to change the meaning of filmmaking. Now I don't know katiko possible cha, katiko truth cha, kaile samma huncha. But if this happens, then where is the whole creative field going?
And how might it change public speaking? Because
everything's going to change. If we reach that level of understanding, honestly, everything's going to change. I'll be out of a job for sure. That's a sad thought.
Yeah, I hope that does not happen.
I hope it does.
Yeah.
That's the hope. I think that's what we're living for, because there's no way that we'll be able to compete against. See, public speaking, the connection, the human to human connection, the emotions, the stories cannot be done on a computer. As of today, my studies, my connection, my passion, the joy in my eyes, the enthusiasm in my words, that only I can bring. Having said that, a lot of these things, if they're going to be outsourced so easily, who knows what's going to happen next, and who knows how the next generation will like to consume content. It's not so much about me being willing to give that content. It's not so much about me willing to do this. It's also about what people want. Are they accepting that, or are they okay with an artificially generated person speaking to them? We need to watch.
Yeah, let's hope for good things.
Hope for good things.
Hope is a good thing, probably the most wonderful of things. So, यही नोटमा एन्ड गरौँ म्याम आजको. It was wonderful talking to you. निकै खुसी लाग्यो. कति साथीहरूलाई मैले भनेको थिएँ मान्छे म्याम आउँदैन, म पनि आउँदैन.
Well, I'll have a nice party and coffee right now.
Next time, हाम्रो इभेन्ट भएको बेला म्यामलाई एज keynote speaker invite गरौँ. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here. I truly enjoyed the experience. Thanks a lot. Thank you.